I got my spectacles on today because I want to be real studious. I have a story to share with you about a time when I was in college. I was about to fail this class for the second time, but God got me through it. And so I want to share the incredible story about how I aced the final exam and I didn't even study. I didn't even have a clue what was going on in this class. And it was my second time taking it. It was crazy. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel where I share stories about my faith journey to encourage you in yours. If you're a young person or if you're an older person going back to class, going back to college, taking some courses, you can be in high school, elementary school, no matter what grade you are in, I just want to encourage you today. Take God with you into the classroom. I know that they've been taking prayer out of the classrooms for years, but that don't mean you can't pray. That don't mean Jesus can't come with you. He can come with you. I want this story to encourage you because I know it's hard. I talk about walking by faith, and I know walking by faith is not an easy thing. When things don't look right, when things look like they're going crazy, when the world around you looks like it's unstable, walking by faith requires you to stand in the midst of that. And sometimes when God calls you to something or when God wants to bring you through something, it's going to require you doing something that seems illogical. And trust me, today's story, I was walking through that. Things seemed really illogical, but I pressed through and God got me through the class. Man, I ain't have to take that thing for a third time. And so I graduated, got my degree, and all is well. I don't even use my degree no more, but hey, it is what it is. So this was around like my senior year of college. I was studying electrical engineering at Purdue University, and there was a particular class that I was taking that was extremely challenging. It was called electromagnetic theory, electromagnetics, something like that. I mean, it just is what it is. I struggled. Now, let me give you a little bit of context. I was a pretty decent student. Coming home in my house, it was unacceptable to get anything less than an A. If you got like a B, my mom's looking at you like,
what are you thinking? You're capable of getting an A, so get an A.
So I came up with straight A's. I was salutatorian of my high school class. And I went to college and that was the first time I got like a C. Listen, I'm sorry, I was a little bit of a nerd. I just gotta say it like that. Regardless, when this class came up, it wasn't like I was fooling around. It wasn't like I wasn't going to class. It wasn't like I wasn't going to the office hours. It wasn't like I wasn't going for help. I did all the above. And I still ended up, getting a D or F on the class, and I had to take the class again. And so the second time around, I went all in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sitting with the professor because I'm like, I don't want to take this thing for a third time. I even said to the professor one time, listen, dude, I'm never going to use this stuff again in my life. I just need to get through it. So just help me get through it. He was like, oh, you are going to use it. Look who was right. I was right. I never used that stuff in my life. I don't even remember what it was. The class was so hard, he had to grade everything on a bell curve, meaning the highest grade wasn't necessarily an A. I don't think anybody got an A on any of his tests. So like you could get a C, but if your C was higher than everybody else's grade, you basically are the one who got the A. I was always on the low end of that bell curve. So I was pretty much just getting like F's and D's. I maybe got a C here or there, I don't know. I knew that going into this final exam, the only way I was gonna pass this class was to get an A. And I'm trying to study, but the stuff is just so complicated. I'm just like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what I'm doing. And I was trying, folks. I was really, honestly trying. It was just hard. The night before the final exam comes, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna pull an all-nighter. Somehow I'm gonna get this A. And I remember praying, like, God, you gotta help me. God, I really need an A. God, I don't wanna take this class again. And it was around this time in my life where I first began to hear the voice of God in my life. You can go back and watch my previous video about hearing the voice of God. If you're wondering how I came into that understanding, how I began to hear the voice of God in my life and know that it was God that was talking. But on that particular night, I heard God say to me,
don't study, just rest, just go to sleep.
And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Why on the night before the final exam, where I'm about to fail a class, if I don't get an A, I'm gonna totally flunk. Why would I go to sleep and not stay up and study? It was just contradictory to anything any logical person would do. But it was so clear in my spirit what I heard or what I sensed, I'll say I sensed, because y'all be funny. Y'all be thinking like, okay, you heard the voice of God. Okay, sure. You know, I believe when you're sensing what God is saying to you, it also feels like if I don't do what I feel like God is saying, then I'm really like disobeying God. And you know, I didn't want to be in sin. I didn't want to be disobeying God. And so I was like, okay, I'm hearing God. I believe this is what he's saying. I'm going to walk by faith and I'm going to just follow what he's saying, because it was pretty clear and it just wouldn't go away. And so I went to sleep. Like, anyway, so I wake up the next morning and I went to go get some breakfast. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'll study while I eat. So I take all my, my stuff and I go and I hear God say,
don't study, just relax, eat your breakfast.
And I'm like, that don't make no sense. Like, I might be bugging. I'm not sure I'm hearing God properly. Like, why would God tell me not to study? It just didn't make any sense. But like I said, it was so strong in my spirit that I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. So went ahead and ate, had a good little breakfast. And then after breakfast, I'm like, okay, can I study now? Like, like what am I gonna do? Like, I'm about to fail this exam. And so I'm praying. I'm like, okay, God, like what do I do? And I hear him say,
take out the 3 previous midterms and just look over them.
And I'm like, I'm about to flunk. Look over the midterms? He's like, just look over the midterms. I'm like, okay, like I ain't had nothing to lose, because I mean, pretty much now I hadn't studied all night. And the test is in like an hour. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna listen, because I guess the reality is I could have studied all night and I still was gonna flunk if I would have done it on my own. So I take out my 3 exams, sitting there at the lunch table, and I just started looking over the material. And I was like, okay, I looked over the exams. Like, here I go, I'm going to go take the exam now. Me being able to approach that final exam was beyond my own understanding. Never in a million years would I have thought, I'm just gonna review the 3 tests, like 30 minutes before the exam. That never would have been my approach. I wanna share a scripture with you. It comes from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. It reads, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. In everything you do, seek God's will. God, what do you want from me? God, how do you want me to approach this? And don't wait till you fall into a bind like I did. You can start at the beginning of the semester and you can say, okay, God, how should I be studying for this class? God, how should I be approaching this material? God, I don't understand what's going on. What steps should I take now? And trust that he's gonna guide you so that you don't get into a bind. But just know that even if you are in a bind, I don't care what situation you're in. Maybe it's something in your household. Maybe it's something with rent money. Maybe it's something with your finances or bills need to be paid. Just trust that he can come through. And don't depend on your own understanding. And I go walk across campus to the class. I sit in the very front. I grab my exam. I sit down. I open it up. I look. And when I looked at the exam, I almost busted out laughing. Every single question on the exam, because I'm flipping page after page after page, and I'm like, this can't be serious. This can't be right. This is impossible. I must be missing something. Every single problem on the exam were the exact same problems from the 3 midterms. If I would have studied, I would have never studied that stuff. I would have been trying to figure out how to do the problems. All that was on the exam, all that I needed to do, I just needed to look over the midterms. The answers were the exact same. I'm like, okay, he must have changed the numbers and I still have to solve the problems. And I'm looking at the problems. He didn't even change the numbers. It was the exact same problems from the midterm. I couldn't believe that. I was the first one done with my test. I went through that bad boy like, whoop, 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 whoop. I'm sure I got 100%. I don't even know what grade I got. All I know is that when I got my report card, my grades came out, I had passed the class. I believe it was with the C, just enough to squeak on by. Thank God I was able to discern what he was saying to me, and it was true. God knows. I don't care what you're going through at your job, in your family, put God first. Bring God into every single scenario, even when you don't think you need him. And I learned from then on, just take God everywhere you go. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, and there were times where I lived without the leading of God and just kind of did things on my own. But I always would kind of run back to God when things got kind of messed up. And so it's okay. Maybe you're in a messed up scenario right now. You're in a bind and you can't get out of it. And God is the only way. I just want to encourage you just to give it to him and trust and believe that he can do the impossible. Why depend on yourself when you don't have to? When Jesus is like, hey, buddy, I'm right here. Remember, you gave your life to me. Allow me to lead you. Waiting for you to surrender your life to him, surrender your problems to him, surrender your journey to him, surrender your future to him, surrender everything to him. You think about getting into a relationship, seek God's will in those things. Seek God's will in your academics. Seek God's will in, God, what should I even be studying? What path should I take? What major should I major in? Seek his will in all things, and he promises for those who have accepted Jesus by faith that he will direct your paths. What are the areas where you haven't been inviting God and you now want to invite him into it? I want to hear about those things, so leave a comment right down below.